Hi everybody, it's Aluna Michaels, Esoteric Astrologer, coming at you to talk about the events of June 2019. Okay, so something is kind of an interesting configuration that's going to be going on, so I want to talk to you a little about that first. Okay, so what we're going to have is there's going to be a full moon, of course, like every month, full moon with the sun in Gemini and the moon in Sagittarius. And when this happens, this is around June 17th, so it's kind of an interesting dynamic to look at. So as we could kind of prepare for this during the month and work on this, when the moon is full, the sun and moon oppose each other. The planet Jupiter is in Sagittarius right now, and it stays in the sign for a year, 12 months, like we know, so not the whole calendar year. It'll be changing in the fall. So Jupiter right now is going backwards, retrograde, and it's going to be right pretty close to the moon when we have the full moon. Then there's another dynamic of Mercury and Mars close together, opposite Saturn and Pluto. So there's all this stuff about planets opposing each other. And when planets in general, oppositions in general, kind of help you to see what you truly believe, what you're truly about. It's almost like, in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, when they say, like, what color is the sky? And you're like, blue. I'm like, are you sure? Yeah, it's blue, right? Are you absolutely sure? But sometimes oppositions, even though you're clear about something, it's like really wanting you to get very clear about values and your being in your truth, even if something's coming up to oppose it, like someone saying, are you sure? And then, they say, of course, sky's blue, you win $1 million. But it's like, doubting yourself, maybe. And so sometimes with full moons, a lot of people are up against that in themselves just by the nature of sun opposed moon, and people can feel irritated or challenged in general. Because in a way, it's almost like your head and your heart being at war in some ways, or your inner and outer self, or your social self and your inward self, with the sun and moon are opposite, okay? So let's just take the Jupiter part, with Jupiter being near the moon. Jupiter itself, when it's in Sagittarius, is about your value system. And Jupiter's always about the value system, your own personal theology, your own personal life philosophy, the way you're viewing the world, your own unique perspective on the world based upon your experiences is Jupiter. And when Jupiter is in Sagittarius, it's even stronger, because that's Jupiter's own planet, is Sag. So I noticed Jupiter went retrograde in April, but a lot of people have been challenged, probably because Saturn went retrograde as well. We'll go to that later. But a lot of people have been feeling like, needing to stand up for their own truth, and maybe being, when the moon is full, a little too loud about that. Some people, you can feel like when someone's challenging your values, or you're asserting yourself, or other people are asserting themselves, like people have kind of been on edge since Jupiter and Saturn went retrograde too in April. So it's like, that full moon can kind of bring that out. It's like calm down, The world is challenging me to continue to say yes to what I believe, not necessarily be told it's wrong or you have to change that, But at the same level, that full moon, if you're not living up to what you think is the best for you, you can say, gosh, I could be doing better at this, couldn't I? And one of the things to watch out for with that is that Jupiter's like big plans, So it's like almost like if you feel like, well, maybe I'm not doing so great, and I do want, like, say you're in a job, you want to be, you're very enthusiastic about it, but you might think, well, maybe I could be doing better. There's ways I could be doing even better. If you were feeling insecure at the job, you could say, I know I'm a good worker, which is part of your values, but you're going to think, well, maybe I could be doing a little, some more to be even better. Sometimes the Jupiter tendency is to go way overboard on either side. Like, maybe there's nothing I can do, or I'm going to do all this stuff. So watching out for extremes with that full moon in the middle of the month, and saying, okay, what are the steps I can be taking to create longer term results? Because sometimes it's Jupiter's failing point, is it's like a balloon that's, and then it pops. It's like too much is too much, And sometimes nothing gets done because it's just all in your head or something. And that's where the other angle of these other oppositions will come in. I'll talk to you about that. But just in the meantime, thinking, what are more humble steps that are sustainable through time, over time, that are doable, consistently, and that won't make you feel discouraged if you have this big plan that doesn't live up. And by that same token, with the downside, like, oh, it just stinks. It's like, okay, what small steps can I do to get closer to my goal, or get back to my personal values, which the retrograde often makes us feel too when Jupiter's retrograde. So combining with that full moon being in Sagittarius, it's like reminding us of our personal values, knowing if we have gone, a little askew, the slow steps to bring it back into balance instead of, this thing like this. So the other thing to talk about is Mars and Mercury both in Cancer for most of the month. And they're going to be, well, Mars is going to be in Cancer all through the month, but most of the month too, well, all month it will be in, and then Mercury will be most of the month in Cancer. So Mars and Mercury are going to kind of track each other through basically, let's say from about the 11th of June through the end of the month. We'll talk about July later, but when those planets are tracking, Mercury's communication and Mars can be anger. And Mercury is getting ready to go retrograde. And those of you who follow this kind of stuff, don't forget about Mercury retrograde. It happens 3 times a year. It's only for 3 weeks. It actually turns retrograde in July, and that won't be until July 7th. But there's this pre-retrograde time, like a kind of a window that Mercury goes into, which, if this makes sense, and I've said it before, Mercury's going to cover the ground that it's going to go backwards over. So it's going forward, but this is the point where I'm going to go backwards. And that's going to start also on around the 20th, let's say, and of June, excuse me. And so Mercury's getting ready to go retrograde. Mercury close to Mars can be kind of hot-tempered because Mars wants something very fast, and Mercury is the communication, so there can be misunderstandings, just irritations that can happen with people. And then when we get later in the month, when Mercury's getting ready to slow down working toward this pathway it's going to go back over during the retrograde, just taking some breaths, not being reactive, especially with family, because a sign of Cancer is a lot about family, but it can be work stuff too, or any life things. But watching out for a sense of impatience, a sense of assuming you know the answer, someone else is trying to communicate with you, and being patient with other people who are being impatient, who don't know about astrology and don't know what's going on. So that's kind of a theme throughout June. And then there's Saturn and Pluto that are tracking close together for a while, and they're in Capricorn opposing the Mercury-Mars. Now, Saturn and Pluto both, when they're opposing, can feel very judgmental. So because, Saturn is just, in general, kind of an authority figure, and Pluto is like this big power that can be intimidating. So when you get those together, opposing even just Mercury, people can feel picked on or judged or tired even. And even the Mars opposing Saturn and Pluto, people can feel tired or worn out or burned out. And so you put all that together and people could feel fairly impatient throughout the month, So it's a wonderful opportunity to be gentle with people while holding your boundaries and everything, but thinking, wow, a lot of people are feeling frustrated right now. And a lot of it can stem from people not attaining their own goals or, not living up to whatever they think, feeling pressure or whatever, because there's, again, that Saturn Pluto gives a sort of looming sort of feeling that people are feeling inside themselves, or maybe they're having problems at home or at work, whatever it is just either outer judgment is coming at them or inward judgment. So a lot of people feeling a little bit bumpy. So if you're watching yourself, being aware that that person's probably really suffering right now if they're, edgy. But again, blessing some of these people while you're blessing yourself too. The saving grace here, not that this is the worst thing ever, but with all these oppositions that are going on, but it's kind of a strong theme throughout June, is that Neptune is also working in this whole story. And Neptune is the planet of compassion. So Neptune is slowing down to go backwards, which means we're just kind of feeling Neptune more than we normally would. And the themes of Neptune are a sense of forgiveness, a sense of overarching hope, a sense of noting your good spirit in things, your intention of things, is that you're moving toward progress, you're being a good person, you're working towards your goals, whatever. And Neptune cuts you some slack, you know? So Neptune is in Pisces, and it's making a trine, because Pisces is a water sign, trining a good flow of energy to that Mercury and Mars when it's getting kind of kooky in the middle of the month, or those, 10 days in the middle of the month or so. Neptune just you can cut yourself some slack by meditation, Neptunian things, deep breathing, being out in nature. If you can go to the water is always good with Neptune, or even a bath or a nice shower or something. Having a fountain by you is nice, Neptunian kind of things, or just deep breathing and 5 minutes of meditation, that sort of thing. So Neptune is really the key to the whole month, about feeling more grounded and feeling less irritable with people or with yourself, So the other thing is that Venus sign is in Gemini this month as well, most of the month. And Venus is what you love. And Mercury is your friends. Mercury, Gemini is the friends and ideas. So ideas that you feel make you happy. Being around people who support you and say positive things and give you encouragement. Gemini has that idea. I was saying Mercury because Gemini, of course, is ruled by Mercury. So it's that idea of who you surround yourself by. So you're surrounding yourself with loving thoughts. You're surrounding yourself with people. This idea that Gemini can give you the opposite side of the story. What is the real assessment of what's going on? You can say to your friend and say, you're doing awesome. You made all this progress. Like, okay. Working with positive affirmations as well. And the idea, I was listening to an interesting podcast, we're talking about sometimes that affirmation is such a big jump from where you are. Even if you have the affirmation, part of the affirmation is, I'm willing to believe, I'm willing to believe I'm prosperous. I'm willing to believe I'm healthy and eating healthy, or whatever you're trying to do. The willingness to open to that new thought and the positive thought, and holding that in your mind. Sometimes the willingness is easier, or I'm striving to believe this, because it's true. It's better than, ugh, things stink. But sometimes when you have that higher thought, it can be hard to really believe it. So you want to really feel it. If you feel willing, I'm willing to say this affirmation that I'm a good worker, whatever it would be. So knowing that there's progress being made, and with that kindness, because Venus is love and kindness, and that Neptune is the compassion. So you want to be able to pull those things out from the other kind of crash kind of stuff that goes on this month. And, and knowing that there can be things coming up in meditation or in interactions with people where you think, wow, that's a valid thing. I don't like the way the information's coming at me, or even if it's your self-criticism, well, this could be a valid point, but I'm going to change the way I feel about myself with this, or the attacking words or negative shaming words, and use constructive, supportive ideas to get to the change point. And being able to extract, again, if it's something like, say it's a work thing and people are being hard on you, assessing you, you can say, well, that point's right. I'm going to take the fear out of it. I'm going to make changes. So because part of that whole thing we're talking at the beginning with the Jupiter is probably if you're watching this video, one of your goals is to be kind to yourself, to grow, yes, but also be kind and believe you can really become, unfold that person you want to be and all of that. So, knowing that you're constantly moving forward, and that's the point. So why do you have to give yourself a hard time if you made an error, So using this time as a point of balance that, yeah, you can get some good information what needs to improve, but being kind to yourself in the improvement process. So, and again, tricky part would be watching with family things. When a lot of planets move into Cancer, it can be old tapes from family and you react to people about that, or somebody at work reminds you of your parent or something like this. And so just being kind to yourself for all of those themes that might be arising, and observing them maybe arising in other people. So, I hope you do have a good month of June, because I think, again, the compassion is going to go a long way to making it smooth, and the self-love, self-appreciation thoughts, and of course saying appreciative thoughts to other people and focusing on gratitude for the others in your life and expressing that can make their month of June even smoother. So if you'd like to get a session with me, you can always contact me through my website, alunamichaels.com. I do have my ebook on there, that you can get, and that's on Amazon as well, the 12 gifts, the spiritual gifts of the 12 astrological signs. Also, if you'd like a session, you can text me or call me at 248-583-1663. The number will be below in my description of the video. And bye-bye for now.